Hello, and welcome to another video. Today we're going to be talking about the retirement paradox, and we will get to what that means in a second. But if you're new here, welcome. I am Lisa. I have been doing retirement planning for almost 14 years now, and I help people get to financial independence as quickly as possible. And the purpose of these videos are just to kind of break away some of those myths, some of those things that we keep telling ourselves that could be getting in the way of getting you to your financial freedom. And oftentimes I talk about this a lot, but I'm going to bring it up in this one because we're going to talk about retirement a lot. Retirement is really a state of mind, in my opinion, whether that means retiring early at 45 or whether it means working till you're 67 or never retiring. I have many people who say, I don't think I ever want to give up working. And that's wonderful, but that doesn't mean you shouldn't be working towards financial independence. So we're going to be talking about the retirement paradox, mainly because that's what the inspiration was called, and you'll hear what that is in a second. But retirement, really just click in and push in financial freedom or financial independence is that. And what is financial independence? It really is, I get to do what I want, when I want. I am not constricted by money. And so that is what financial independence means. Does that mean I can go buy a yacht? For some people, that is financial independence or financial freedom. For other people, they're like, I just want to be able to cover my mortgage, my expenses, and with what I have saved, and not have to worry if there's an income coming in, or make a change in my life so that I'm taking a lower paying job because I've saved so much. And that's my passion project, rather than necessarily having to make a certain income to cover bills. So the whole inspiration, I guess, behind this video was a Yahoo Finance video that I saw. It's only about 2 or 3 minutes. Doesn't go through a lot of detail, but I thought it was really interesting. And I will make sure I link it in the description below so you can see the original video. But it's called The Retirement Paradox. And when I first saw that title, I thought, I don't really know what a paradox is. I mean, I've heard of it. I kind of have a sense of what it means, but what does it actually mean? So I looked it up, Googled it, and it means seemingly absurd or self-contradictory statement or phrase, but in this case it's a statement. And just if you wonder where I'm looking at my notes. Okay, so you see what I'm saying. So essentially that's what a paradox is. So really we're talking about retirement contradictions, things that people think one way, but really it's maybe another way. And I thought that this gentleman made some interesting points, some better than others. And we'll go through them, and then we're going to talk about just 3 things you can do to control your destiny so that you're not stuck in these paradoxes. So I hope that sounds good to you. So this gentleman's name is Salvatore Capiz. I probably said that wrong. I apologize ahead of time. He is Executive VP of Dunham and Associates Investment Counsel, Inc. That is a long name. I thought our name was a long name, but that's a long name. All right, so he went through 3 things that he says are retirement paradoxes. And let's go through them, and I'll give you my little bit of insight on them as well. Number 1, he says, is flexible retirement planning. So I agree with this. In many respects, people think that you put your plan together and you stick to your plan. That's what we've always heard. Stick to your plan. And that's not the way it works anymore. It's flexible. Does that mean that you shouldn't hit savings goals? No. Does that mean that you shouldn't invest some of your money to keep up with inflation and other, growing costs in the world? No. But does that mean that how you invest and how much you invest and where you put your money and things like that don't change over time? No, they definitely do. So essentially, it's flexible, and people don't seem to get that because it's stick with the plan, right? And I have so many people who come to do planning and they say, I want to put my plan in place and I'll be good. And that's not really the way it works. And so it's always a not moving target. Your target doesn't have to move, but your strategies you put in place change often due to tax legislation, due to changes in different retirement sources, doing, changes in types of retirement accounts. I mean, look at the 80s. We didn't even have 401ks till the 80s, really. And then they're now the main source of retirement, where before it was pensions and personal savings. You didn't really have that kind of a thing. So things changed dramatically. And so if you put your plan in place in 1965 and you were retiring in 1990, it's a different strategy because you have a different tool, right? So flexible planning is one of those things that people don't realize is part of really having a solid plan when it comes to financial freedom or retirement. Number 2, this one was a little bit stranger to me, but I kind of understand what he was saying, which is treat retirement income management like running a personal financial company. So I think what he's trying to say is that, like, if you're a business owner, which I am, you look at your different streams of income and you look at your money in a different way. And I think when people think of their personal money, they think of it as something different. Like in my world, people are like, I'm a business planning specialist or I'm a personal planning specialist. I often say I work with people on their personal planning. However, if you're a small business owner, your business is your personal planning. It is. And I always thought that was really strange that people are saying, oh, I'm business only and I don't help with personal. That's strange to me because it's all the same thing. It's all personal planning. It's all about how do you get to financial freedom as fast as possible? How do you build a business that will afford you to do the things that you want to do, right? And so essentially, when you look at different streams of income, you see a different stream of income coming in and you look at it in almost a very third-party way when it comes to your business, right? You look at planning income. Let's take my business, planning income. I have 4 streams of income. I take in investment management fees because I help people invest their money. I do planning. And so if somebody just wants a plan done, we build the plan and they get charged a fee, and that's that. I do monthly consultation, which is ongoing, helping people build their plan if they're maybe just starting or kind of unsure where to start or not sure if they want me to help with investment management. We start there. And then I have insurance lines. I do, life insurance, disability, and long-term care, because that is, to me, part of planning, making sure that people are prepared for, the unknown, really, in those cases. Hopefully never happens, but, everybody probably will pass away at some point, and we need to know what legacy we're leaving, right? So I have 4 streams of income. Now I take a look at all the different streams of income that come in. I know what those streams of income are every year, and I bring it in, I take out expenses, I take out taxes, and that's my net profit, right? Or my revenue. And that is what a lot of business owners do. But when it comes to our personal finances, we don't look at it that same way. And I think what he's trying to say, and I could be totally wrong, but this was my interpretation of it, is that essentially we need to be looking at our finances in more of a third party way than we do now. And we don't, because money is emotional. And so when it comes to our business, for some reason, we're able to turn that off. But when it comes personal, we get very emotional about our money. And so that was my thought process of what he meant by that. Number 3 is allow real-time adaptation to market conditions in personal circumstances. To me, this is very similar to the first one. Maybe he didn't mean them to be the same, but you have to make adjustments to things. You can't just assume that things are exactly the same. They adjust, markets adjust, investments adjust. And I don't necessarily sit with clients and make huge changes on their portfolios all the time, but I will say what's changed is the objective of this account still the same as it was before, because things change in terms of, no, the objective's different. I've now decided I used to want to retire at 65. Now I want to retire at 55. Objective has changed. Or I used to think that this account was going to be for my kids. They're set. I don't feel that need anymore. Now it's for me. That is a change. And a lot of parents do that and they feel so guilty, and they shouldn't feel guilty. You saved your money, you've done well for your kids, you are allowed to have money for yourself. And essentially that objective of that account has changed. Personal finances change, personal circumstances change. People get divorced, people get married, people have kids that they weren't expecting to have, people don't have kids when they think that they were going to have kids. Things change. And we need to be fluid with our planning so that we're making sure that we are planning for the right thing for us in our current time, not from something 5 years ago. So I think that those are really good paradoxes. As we grow older, they are saying also one of the things that he talked about mostly, which I thought was really interesting, was that people are planning a lot of times for retirement to be 20 years, 20, 30 years, maybe, right? And he's saying that we are actually getting to the point that people could be living to 110 and 130. And he said what I see all the time, which is I do planning to at least 95. And clients will roll their eyes and say, oh my God, I don't want to live that long. I don't want to do planning for that long. And while you might want it or you might not want it, you still could live that long. We still need to see where you're at. And he's making the case that really 40 or 50-year retirements are going to be more of the norm. And I see that trend too, especially with the early retirement movement happening. I see that, we can have 50, 60 years in retirement. So, and we could have, and people are basing things off of lower inflation rates because we had lower inflation rates, but really you need to take a look at the historical inflation rate, which is between 2 and 2.5%, and see what that really does to your money and your needs. If you retire and then 40 years later you're still retired and you're still relatively healthy and needing to have money, which we all do, whether we're healthy or not, that is a huge difference. That number will be dramatically different in just a 2 to 2.5% inflation rate. So people are not considering that kind of thing, and they're not considering the growing retirement years that we have. Even if we don't live to 110 or 130, like he was saying, people are still wanting to retire earlier, and that is a phenomenon that people are not taking into account. So it made me start thinking about what are 3 things that you can control when it comes to your retirement planning, especially with this longevity of retirement being longer. So I'm going to run through them quickly, and I'd love to hear what your thoughts are. And you can always contact us. Go to our website, onevisionretire.com, and contact me and let me know what you thought about everything. But one is time, like when you retire. That makes a huge difference. I've run plans where people, say I want to retire at 55, and we run the plan and it doesn't look that great. And they say, well, what else could I be doing? And I said, well, let's push it out 5 years. Let's push it out, some amount of time. And it does help. Time, being able to put in money takes time, and time can solve some issues that you might have if you don't hit your goals. That's why your parents probably told you your first paycheck, you put 10% in your, I don't know who talked like my dad didn't say that, but you should start saving for retirement early. And they're right. Time being able to save is huge. It's huge. And so if you feel like I'm never going to retire, just push it out a couple of years and see what that makes a difference. You might not want to push it out, but maybe we should have started earlier. Sorry to be mean, but that's the truth, right? So time makes a big difference. So you have control over time. Within reason, obviously. If something happens, you didn't have control, but you have time in terms of maybe you think you want to retire at 55, but at 60, it seems more possible. And that might just be your goal. And that's part of that flexible planning we're talking about, right? Number 2 is the lifestyle you want to live in retirement. So people always say, well, I need to know what the number is. And I said, well, that's great. I need to know what retirement looks like for you. Because if you're sitting at home reading books and not really doing much, maybe hanging out with some friends in the area and barbecuing on a Saturday, that is a very different retirement and a very different lifestyle than somebody who wants to take world cruises every year, or somebody who wants to buy a second home, or somebody who wants to travel all over Europe every year. You know, that's a very different lifestyle than somebody who's staying at home. And that's not bad. It's definitely not bad. And it's funny because so many people think that they're going to be this travel person, and then they really end up being like, I don't want to. I'm good. You know, especially with the headaches of travel now, international travel can be such a pain in the butt to have to deal with. So essentially a lot of people are starting to stay home more, but what your lifestyle in retirement is going to look like is totally different. So if you think that you can't retire because you're trying to plan for this lavish lifestyle, but your main objective is retirement, to be done working, maybe you just got to tone it down and take a world cruise every 5 years rather than every year. So you get to control the lifestyle that you live in retirement, which basically means how much you're spending, right? And then thinking with the end in mind. I think most people don't think about the end in mind. They don't think about where they're trying to get to. They just think retirement, that's what I'm trying to get to. But that doesn't mean anything. Retirement doesn't mean anything to anybody else. So you need to know what your retirement looks like, or your end in mind. And so when we think about that, we need to be thinking about 3 different things really you've got to keep in mind for the end in mind when you're doing your planning now. One is taxes. Where are you going to be tax-wise? Are you going to be in a lower tax bracket, or are you going to be in a higher tax bracket? If you're a business owner, you could be in a higher tax bracket depending on how much you're writing off now, right? And if you're not having those deductions anymore, that could be a big difference. I haven't seen a lot of people slip to lower retirement tax levels, but it happens. It does happen. I can't say none of my clients have gone into a lower tax bracket. There are some, but a lot of them do stay in the same retirement tax bracket, and a lot of my business owners go up, unfortunately, in their tax bracket. So you got to think about that. Income streams. What streams of income are you taking? Are you only taking it from investments? Are you only taking it from cash? Are you only taking it from housing? Are you having a diversified income stream? What happens if the market's not doing well? Where are you going to get your money from? Those kind of things are really important to know what your income streams are. And the third is really your risk. How much risk are you really able to take? Because if you are not taking enough risk, you could be in trouble. And if you are taking too much risk, you could be in trouble. And people don't talk about that really your risk is something that you are able to control. So if you know that you are a risk sensitive person, that doesn't mean that you should ever work in an area that you feel uncomfortable with. Like, you shouldn't be taking on risk that you shouldn't be taking. However, that is going to change dramatically your savings rate, right? If you're taking a very low risk at age 25, let's say, or even 35, right? Where people say you're young, you should be taking risk, but that feels very uncomfortable to you. Your savings rate has to be higher. If you're taking more risk, people say, well, you don't have to save as much. Maybe, depending on the risk you're taking. So knowing your risk, knowing your income streams, and knowing how taxes are going to affect you now and in the future, and continuing to look at those, are really things that you can control. So with that, I hope that this helped. I hope this got you thinking about some of the things that you can control and you can't control when it comes to that, some of the paradoxes you might have when it comes to your planning and your idea of what retirement planning looks like. And I am so happy you joined me. Thank you so much for staying to the end. And until next time, keep happy planning. Bye-bye.